Testing 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing. Yeah. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 1, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. 1. Yeah, 1. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3.
So the Prime Minister is on his way and we will be starting momentarily. Thank you.
You got a link for this live tonight? Can I?
I can't. I have no way of giving it to you.
Oh.
The best thing you could do is probably go on my Facebook.
Okay. What is your Facebook?
If you do facebook.com/Party Caribbean.
Hold on.
Do you know the lighting, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Can we get any more light inside?
They didn't book none of that.
So they can't even just turn up the house lights more? Who
That's the lighting that's there. It's off, bro. Nothing you can do about it. You didn't pay for that.
Okay, tell me again.
So Facebook.com/party. Oh, you in there? Just you know what? Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome, darling. You know what?
Good evening, everyone. How are you all doing today? Good. Okay, I'm going to ask you, if you are standing, to please find a seat. We are about to begin. The Prime Minister has arrived and we're going to bring him in here shortly. So if you are standing, please find a seat. We have a capacity in here. We need to know how many seats are vacant. I know you might be holding seats for friends. If they're not here by the time we start, you may have to give those up, okay? So please have a seat and we will start shortly.
Good to go?
Yeah, bro. Well, we ain't doing that yet. Hold on, man.
Say again?
Well, I'll improvise now. When I come back, I'm going to take out my own phone.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in standing as we welcome Prime Minister Honorable Dickon Mitchell and his delegation from Grenada. Thank you. Okay. We're finally going to start. Good evening, everyone. The Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, Honorable Joseph Andel, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development, Ambassador for Diaspora Affairs, His Excellency Sir Terence, His Excellency Sir Terence Forster, Ambassador for Trade and Investment, Ms. Andrea Bernard, and we also have Akira Leslie, Executive Assistant to the Prime Minister. It is my pleasure to welcome you all here today to this National Town Hall. It was a heavily anticipated and requested event, and we are happy to make this a reality. At this point, I would like to call to the podium Ms. Grace Sylvester so she can open us up in prayer. Thank you.
praise and thanks to you. We thank you for bringing us safely here today. We invite your spirit into our midst as we question, discuss, and gain insight on our country's plans and progress. Please help us to do so in a considerate and constructive way. We pray for our beloved homeland Grenada that as we approach our 50th independence anniversary, you will bestow wisdom and humility on our new government, that they will continue to lead your people with justice, and that with your guidance and help, lift up our beautiful tri-island state, up, up, up in transformation and prosperity, as we aspire, build and advance as one people. And we ask this in your holy name. Amen. Amen.
Let me indulge you a little bit more for standing as we have the national anthem. At this juncture, jumping right into the program, I would like to invite to the podium His Excellency Terence Forrester, Ambassador for Diaspora Affairs, to present a few words.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, Prime Minister, Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development, the Honorable Joseph Mandel, Your Excellency Andrea Sunderland, responsible for Trade and Investment, Ms. Akira Lewis, well, she's everything this week. She is responsible for keeping the Prime Minister on track with all his responsibilities. High Commissioner, we are indeed delighted to be here. Thank you very much. We also have in our presence the Chairman of Last Night's Gala, Mr. Roy McEwen. Give him a big hand for everyone here today. Other distinguished guests, in the audience here, members of staff of the High Commission, and if I've missed any of you, please show your hands. Oh yeah, there are two up there. Members of the NDC chapter in London. Congratulations for a great show last night. And thank you all of you who participated, who came out last night to make this gala the success that it has been. Thank you very much indeed. You need a round of applause for each other. Let me say a hearty thank you. I have never seen such large crowds in London before attending any event or any ministry of government. And I've been around, trust me. Matter of fact, I've been at the High Commission here in 1982. And probably I've seen that really, and the crowd I saw last night was whenever Morris Bishop would come Grenada is so united that I am so happy to be part of this team that it gives me goosebumps at times. Because I have known the past, and I have seen the present, and I believe in the future. And I think we're going on the right track. And give God a good thank you, Jesus, for putting this leadership in Grenada at this point in time. The transformation which our country deserves this moment has been delayed for 25 years. We are on the cusp of celebrating 50 years as an independent nation. If you look back 25 years to now, the needle has not moved very far, although there have been some progress. But I am getting the feeling and I am sensing that something is happening. Something big is going to happen. Grenada is going to be transformed, whether if you like it or you don't like it. It's going to move in a direction that each and every one of us is going to sit back and say, wow, yes, we are making progress. Because I see firm indicators in the transport sector, agriculture sector, tourism sector, the health sector, just about every sector in Grenada, within just under a year and a half, has been touched. And touched in a manner that is going to really make a major, major difference in the lives of Grenadians and Grenada to come. So I believe we are blessed at this time and blessed to have the kind of leadership we have in our lives. And I am privileged to be your new ambassador with responsibility for Diaspora Affairs. We have taken on a number of initiatives, one of which is the Adopt a School initiative, because we believe that our school children should have the opportunity of the best education they can get. They represent the future. They represent the real transformation that will come in the next 25 years. Because if they are 12 and 15 in school, by the time they're 40, Grenada will be sailing with high winds. Education will demonstrate to Grenada the way forward and the future. And I am so happy that this government has taken positive initiatives in removing costs to parents and guardians. Imagine $810 removed for school fees from TAMCC. Some parents, I understand, almost fell down when they heard it. Because this is such a positive move on the part of government that it gives a signal to the population that education will continue to be a major aspect of development of our people and eventually the development of our country. So the Adopt a School initiative has been receiving very good responses from many of you. As a matter of fact, there have been several individuals in Canada, United States, UK, whom have made commitments to different schools. And I'm sure each and every one of you here have attended some school at some point in time in your life in Grenada. Your alma mater, whether if you're from St. Patrick or you're from St. Andrew or wherever you are, you must remember which school you attended. And no matter what you can contribute to that school, it will help to the overall upliftment. The mentorship program is also another initiative of the Diaspora Office. But before I go into the mentorship, let me also share with you that the Office for Diaspora Affairs falls under the leadership of the Honorable Joseph Andrew, Ministry for Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development. So our office operates through that ministry. And his permanent secretary, Mrs. Roxy Hutchinson, we're all working towards uplifting the office and getting it to a high level. Because you must appreciate that while efforts were made in the past with respect to Diaspora Affairs is now taking on a brand new energy, simply because the government recognizes the importance of engaging the diaspora and ensuring that you participate as though you were in Bourg or in Grenville or in Tong or wherever. You are Grenadians, and no matter where you are, feel as though you are on Grenada's Beach. Feel as though you are in Pearl. Feel as though you're in Bourg. Feel as though you're in any part of Grenada, because technology has afforded us this privilege that it becomes seamless. So the mentorship program is dedicated towards individuals who are a little bit misguided, some young, kids in school, they need direction, etc. So we are reaching out to many of you who have, let's say, skills in that particular area of mentorship, mentoring young men and one or two young girls too, to keep them on the straight and narrow road, because all of this helps towards the development and expansion of our young people towards productive citizens in time to come. We are also throwing out to you the opportunity to refurbish government buildings. They are all over Grenada in such dilapidated state. In St. Patrick, the police station is in somebody's private house. The court is in another private location. The doctor's office in another private location. In Bush Grove is no different. The surgery is underneath somebody's house. And this occurred for over the past 25 years, while government buildings stayed in total disrepair. The police station in Bush Grove, I don't know when last you passed it, but just before the bridge, a little concrete building, vine and yam and all sorts of things growing out of it. It is depressing, and it does not send a very good message to Grenadians ourselves and also the general public. So government has approved to allow you and others, other Grenadians that is, who wish to refurbish these buildings. We would enter into what is called a BOLT system, B-O-L-T. You build, operate, lease, you terminate back to government. Of course, your investment, naturally, you would make a return on your investment. But once you identify the building that you wish to refurbish, then in consultation with the approval of cabinet, then a negotiated arrangement will be entered into. So you can refurbish that old building, lease it back to government, you operate, and you terminate back to government. So after a number of years, all these buildings eventually will become refurbished government buildings once again. This initiative will certainly help to bolster our economy. This initiative will help create jobs. This initiative will also help to uplift our communities and not have these dilapidated structures all over the place. Even in the city of St. George, take for example what used to be Parliament Building. It is shameful to see guacano trees and all kind of trees growing out of the foundation. This was the type of governance we had for the past almost 25 years, allowing good quality historical buildings to go into total ruin rather than repairing them. Thank God we now have the kind of leadership who is leading Grenada in a different direction. But we need your help to make it happen. We need your skills. We need your talent. Take, for example, investors who come to Grenada to invest. They, at times, what we still do, have to request from government a license to bring in foreign workers. This continues because yet solidify itself. So if we can have you report to the High Commission in London, if we can have Grenadians all over the world report to the embassies, consul general offices, of their skills and of their talent, we can start building a workforce bank. Because we need those skills and those talents to be transferred to local Grenadians. We would want in the future, when an investor says he wants to do this in Grenada, that even if we don't have the skill and talent in Grenada, locally, we can tap into the database from the UK, from Canada, the US, Texas, wherever it is, say yes, we have Grenadians here and they're willing to come down. That is the kind of support that this government is reaching out to the diaspora, and I want to promise you that every 3 months we wish to engage the diaspora, just to engage you just in a normal session like this. And Prime Minister, I don't mean for this to be a surprise, but we'd like to invite you to, if not possible, each of those 3-month sessions. So that reporting can be had and your questions can be responded to. I want to thank you so very much. You've been a great audience, and I hope I'll see you again sometime soon.
Moving right along, it is my pleasure to invite to the podium to give some brief remarks the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development, the Honorable Joseph Andel.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner, Prime Minister Honorable Dickon Mitchell, other members of the head table, Brother Roy McEwen and his team, staff of the Grenada High Commission, Grenadians, friends of Grenada. A pleasant evening to all. It's really, really good to be among family, and your warmth has seeped into us so much that I don't think any of us has had to put out a coat in a couple of days ago. Thank you for that. My remarks are going to be very brief. I hope I can keep them to under 120 seconds. First of all, I wish to let you know that High Commissioner Rashid Crowley is the High Commissioner of Grenada for all Grenadians. So please make use of the High Commission. Feel free to engage regardless of what may have transpired in the past. It is for and of all of us. Your government has placed so much value on our diaspora that we decided to upgrade the Office of Diaspora Affairs to ambassadorial level. And I'm sure that having listened to Ambassador Forrester for the couple of minutes that he was here, you're convinced that big things are in train and in store for us and for you. We have also, since assuming office, through the initiative of 2 young women who live in the United States, established the Grenada Diaspora Advisory Council. And although it has its genesis in the US, the aim is to have it encompass all Grenadians in every nook and cranny of the planet. We are developing a database so that we can register all Grenadians with skills, talents, capital, and patriotism to find an avenue for making your contribution to the national transformational effort through GDAC and our other institutions. You have a unique opportunity to have an impact in your host country as well as in the land where many of your naval strengths are buried. You have to use your presence here, your power to vote, to affect, to have an effect on what takes place in the halls of power in the UK, in the way that it conducts its relationship to Grenada and other Caribbean countries. I'm sure that the Prime Minister will elaborate on some of those things. We have to take it as our collective responsibility to inculcate in the those who may not have been born here or who came here as little ones, Grenadianism. Make sure that they understand what it is to make and to eat an oil. If you're from Chantimel, let them know what a coconut work is. Yeah? And let us keep the link and the connection going from strength to strength. We need you, you need us, and together we can and will make it happen. Thank you.
Now the moment that we've been waiting for and the reason why we're all here. It is my pleasure to introduce the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell. His story is one of success, forged from hard work, determination, and a deep desire for betterment. Dickon Mitchell began his service to Grenada as a teacher at his alma mater, the Presentation Brothers College. The pursuit of his law degree would take him to the University of the West Indies in Barbados and Hewitt Law School in Trinidad, gaining regional experience that would fuel his passion for regional integration. His commitment to serve Grenada brought him straight home after studies, where he distinguished himself as a formidable lawyer at Grant, Joseph & Co., and later Mitchell & Co. Dickon Mitchell's collective experience as a teacher, mentor, lawyer, and youth advocate shaped his commitment to Grenada and motivated his decision to enter the political arena. In June 2022, only 8 months into his political career, he led his party to victory. As Prime Minister, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell is working with his cabinet of ministers to move Grenada forward, building the foundation for an equitable society that takes pride in its culture, heritage, and identity. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in standing as we welcome to the podium the 9th Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell.
Permit me to adopt the protocol list and say a warm good evening to all of you who are here with us this evening. I'd ask the Minister for Foreign Affairs to keep his remarks brief, and I'm going to do the same for the simple reason that I think there's so many of you and so few of us that the idea of the talk already is to hear more from you. And so I want to make sure that we use the time to give you the opportunity to engage with us, to share your thoughts, your comments, to ask your questions. So it's a genuine discussion rather than me standing here and perhaps saying many of the things that you've already said. And I'm asking, obviously, for you to join me in that discussion, because that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, and which certainly during our campaign to persuade Grenadians to take a chance on persons like myself who've never been in public life before, that we felt it was important to send the message that our approach to governance can't be top-down, but that it must be ground-up, and that we have to give our citizens the opportunity to take the mics and to share their views, their experiences, and to have them say what they would like to see happen, and how it should happen. And if we don't give our citizens that opportunity, then I think we're going to make a lot of mistakes that we made in the past. And so I want to start by, of course, thanking all of you for coming out on your Sunday evening to be here with myself, Mr. Andel, Ambassador Forrester, Ambassador Silverman, Ms. Leslie, the High Commissioner, and the team here in London. I don't take it for granted that on a Sunday evening there are lots of other things you could have been doing in preparing for the work week ahead of you. So I'm deeply moved by your generous turnout. In fact, some of you are standing with the seats, obviously, it's testimony to your commitment for that. So I hope you forgive me if I ask you to give yourselves a round of applause for being here. And yes, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs has said, we made a point of ensuring that we engage directly with the diaspora. Not just by having town halls or me traveling to some of the major cities where we have large diaspora groups, but by ensuring that even within the structure of the government in Grenada, particularly at the statutory bodies and boards, we have several of them, tens of them, the diaspora persons are given the opportunity to serve on these boards. So when we went about inviting persons who wanted to serve on whether it's NOASA or Grenada or PURC, we made a point of searching for persons in the diaspora and asking them to indicate an interest in doing so. And many of them responded. We had created a portal by which we sent out invitations to all Grenadians who wanted to serve on statutory boards who prior to had not received the opportunity to do so. And we got as many as 1,600 applications from Grenadians at home and Grenadians abroad. And that is because in the past, statutory bodies were invariably politically dominated, and the persons who served on them were more or less handpicked by whoever was forming the government of the day, regardless of the person's competence, experience, or expertise. And so we wanted to make a point of pushing back against that. Yes, we're a political organization, and it means some of the persons who want to vote can be affiliated with the party. But we wanted to make sure that we had a diverse group of persons, including persons from the diaspora, including women, including young people. And so you'd see on many boards there is a deliberate attempt to make sure that the boards reflect our society, that we have women on it, that we have young persons on it, that we have experienced persons, and that we have members of the diaspora. So there are many members of the diaspora who are serving on statutory bodies in Grenada, and so they get the opportunity to bring their expertise, to bring their experiences to bear. And I'll give one example. We have the Transport Commission. The Transport Commission is a recently formed statutory body which mandate is to essentially revolutionize the transport situation in Grenada. As many of you may be aware, there is no public transportation in Grenada. What you have are private buses that are operated, in a sense, for the public, but they're owned, they're financed by private buses. There's no government involvement, save to perhaps try and regulate the price that the bus owners can charge. And then there are private taxis. That essentially is the extent of the transportation system in Grenada, and then there are persons who own their private vehicles. So we recognize that that system is not serving the country. You have no night service, you have no weekend service, and in many instances there's just no service. And so the Transport Commission is mandate ready, is to get us to a point where we can get public transportation service. But that Transport Commission, save for the chair and the deputy chair, all of the other members reside in the diaspora. And there's a reason for that. Because we want the expertise to create a public transportation system. To some extent, that expertise does not reside in Grenada for the simple reason that we don't have a public transportation system in Grenada. So there will be very few Grenadians in Grenada who would have walked in or be familiar with the public transport system. But there are many Grenadians who would have worked in London, in China, in the United States, who have been integral in mass transit systems, the development, the policy, the regulations, etc. And so we looked to the diaspora to help us in developing. And they are serving and serving well. Just last Monday, I met with them and the consultant Ernst & Young, and they've already developed a 3 to 5 year plan to begin to address some of the issues that plagues our transportation system in Grenada. And I give this as a simple example of how the diaspora can contribute and how we encourage you to contribute beyond the traditional means of sending a viral home or sending remittances or sending medical supplies. Because if there's one thing we want to change, is the idea that we in Grenada only know the diaspora when we want some material gain or benefit from it. And that's one of the key things that my government is very eager to change. We want to make sure that the relationship between the diaspora and Grenada is reciprocal, it's mutual, it's one that we both benefit from, and that we minimize any sense of resentment or discord or disagreement. Because as we said last night at the gala, united we will stand whether we're in the diaspora or whether we are in Grenada. And so that is just a simple example of the change we are bringing and the change we wish to foster in the relationship between the diaspora and Grenada. And so we really do welcome your thoughts, your suggestions, your ideas. I'm here to take your questions, to listen to the comments, your counsel, so that when I leave here, I can go back to Grenada cemented and very clear in my mind as to what are the areas that you think you may be able to help with, what are the areas of concern you have, and how we can work together to make this a reality. And as Minister of Foreign Affairs said, it is important for us to appreciate that we have the ability to vote and to influence policy in the United Kingdom. And we need to make sure that the United Kingdom has more than perhaps in the context of Greater France or Spain or other European countries, to some extent a direct responsibility for its former colonies. Because when Grenada got independence 50 years ago, there was no widespread education system. There was no social security. There was no national insurance. There was no international airport. So when they left having left Grenada and most of the English-speaking Caribbean underdeveloped. Right? The entire system from our police stations, the police stations were all traditionally placed close to plantations so that historically they can deal with or for parents who are asked to labor oftentimes for free or in subhuman conditions for estate owners. That's reality. And it may not be things that they may want to hear, but that's the truth. When many of you migrated to come to the UK, you came to the UK to help the United Kingdom. The Windrush generation came building the United Kingdom. And so if there is one country, certainly from our perspective, that has a moral and legal responsibility to make sure that its relationships and its dealings with the English-speaking Caribbean are fair, it's the United Kingdom. And so while we've adopted in a sense that they've left us the legacy of parliamentary democracy, the legacy of speaking English, the other thing is that they've not left us with. And it's important for us to be able to see that and for us to be able to explain those things, so that if they pursue policies which are harmful to the economic growth or development of Grenada, it's important for us to be able to speak up and to stand up for those things. Because I can certainly see that the Grenadian diaspora in the United Kingdom is not a diaspora that is dependent on the UK government. It's a diaspora that has come here, worked hard, and made itself a success. And so we have to ensure, for example, if they pursue policies which are anti-immigrant, if they seek to impose visas on people from the English-speaking Caribbean, that we can explain to them that we are your former colonies. You left us on hill. And therefore we should not have a situation where Russians and Eastern Europeans who often parents help you fight against during World War I and World War II. You can enter this country without visas and then you seek to impose visa restrictions on the descendants of persons who fought alongside and for you in World War I and World War II. So I'm raising those issues because I don't want us, although our focus obviously is on, in a sense, the direct relationship with Grenada, it's important as citizens of the United Kingdom as well that you appreciate that sometimes there are policies emanating from the UK which still have a colonialistic, imperialistic, anti-third world stance in terms of our economic development. And so we need to be aware of that so that we can speak to those issues collectively in a stronger voice. Because there are times when they will be our votes for matters that they view or see as important to them, which may not have anything to do with us. And if they wish to get that support, then we need to make sure we can leverage that vote to ensure that they pass policies that are favorable to us in the Caribbean as well. And you know that I speak of the Caribbean because to a large extent, many of the issues, whether it's banking, whether it's taxation, whether it's the visa issue, those issues apply equally to Grenada as they apply to Dominica, as if it's Trinidad and Tobago or Dominica. So I do partly stand here, of course, as a representative and as a citizen of the Caribbean as well. So I said I was going to be brief. I feel as if I've gone a little beyond brief. But I certainly want to thank you and encourage you for us to engage in a discussion and use much of the time as we can to do so. So thank you very much for coming out.
we will open the floor for questions. I would ask that if you do have a question that you lift your hand, you will be acknowledged, and then you can proceed with speaking. To allow our panelists to be able to answer the questions adequately, can we please limit the questions to at least 3 at a time so they can respond to it? Okay, the floor is now open.
One, this.
Okay, if you lift your hand, just stand so the person can see who lifted their hands. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening. God save PM, Dickon Mitchell. One of the situations, okay, I was born here, and my mom, sometimes I say she kidnapped me to the West Indies for 2 months holiday, and it's been 8 years. And then when I came back, and every time I've been back, one of the situations I've noticed, because there's a lot of cars now and stuff in town, people with special needs, elderly people, and such like, the pedestrian situation is not really good. I went with an elderly relative. They're a great person, but I can see the anxiety and the apprehension in trying to navigate walking in town. I noticed there are a lot of culverts where there's like gaps because they're just entrances into buildings. Temporarily, I don't know if something can be done where they can be covered and allowed for pedestrian access. I don't know also if there's a possibility where you can have a park and ride system which can be in collaboration with the government transport that you want to organize, where people park outside and they be transported into that small town. My second thing is, I'm going to be trying to be brief, is that I think I noticed online that Grenada, the town of St. George, and I'm not disparaging any other towns, the whole of Grenada is a beautiful place, is a UNESCO heritage thing. I don't know if you guys know that. And I heard it was mentioned about helping to build back the town and the government buildings and stuff. I think aesthetically, it would be really good if some of the buildings can be painted, and maybe you can raise a GoFundMe for that as well. Not only in Grenada, not only over here, but like in Grenada as well, everybody of course. But yeah, the town looks so much more better. And also, comparing to like if you go St. Vincent, you will see what they've done with their walkways on the highway and stuff like that. So just making that suggestion. Thank you.
Well, I want to say that I agree with you on everything you said. Grenada needs some significant, despite its natural beauty, some significant improvement to its aesthetics. I mean, from dealing with the congestion of the vehicles, we've got about, Commissioner of Police indicated we have as much as probably 80,000 vehicles in Grenada. Now, our population is give or take 110,000. So it means we already probably have more vehicles than the infrastructure of Grenada can take. And that goes back to the same issue about the transport situation, where people feel, particularly young people, feel compelled to buy a vehicle because they feel as though they can move at their time. So we recognize that we need to solve this issue very quickly because it has the potential for the disastrous consequences. I mean, even if you go to the town of St. George, you recognize it's not just the fact that you have these open drains which are not covered, and have not been covered for decades. You also have significant sidewalk bending, so you made to walk in the road rather than on the sidewalk. So all of these things need cleaning up, and it requires us to educate our people and to not make them feel that, anytime you try and create order, which is for the benefit of everyone, sometimes there's a reaction that you're trying to stop people from, and I'm going to use the religion narrative, or from earning their living. Right, but it's not that. We actually want you to earn your living, and we want to make it easier for you to earn your living. And if we have to explain to persons, that's why you create markets, so that you can drive the traffic to a particular location where everybody gets an opportunity to earn a living, rather than you feeling so desperate that you need to leave and go out onto the street, onto the pavement to do that. So in order for us to get to the point where we can address those issues, for example, ensuring that we have park and ride systems, we have public transportation that caters to persons who are disabled, or caters to our senior citizens, we have to be able to challenge take on some of the structural issues we have. Because you see, if it's private persons who are still running the buses all the time, they will simply look for the most lucrative route, and they will look for persons who are able-bodied, persons who can pay them quicker, and so that they have less to give, that sort of thing. So we recognize we have to have a comprehensive plan to address this. But there are low-hanging fruits that we can start by looking at the streets, for example, where you have large open culverts, where you can simply create sidewalks over them, or other pathways or walkways or that persons can walk over, and just to make it safer. So the Ministry of Infrastructure has actually identified some of the streets already, especially those streets that are narrow, like Scott Street or Lucas Street, where you run the risk often of being hit by a vehicle because there's just no pavement to cover the drains, so that we can actually make it safer for persons to walk. But overall, really St. George's ought to be a pedestrian-friendly town. So to your point that we really need to get to the point where it's only in line with public transportation, as in buses that take people in and out, we have to get to that point. We simply can't afford for one more private vehicles to come in. There's very few places to park, and the places where they park should really be places that pedestrians should be permitted to walk, or carry a basket, or your shopping cart, as the case may be. So those are some of the issues that we definitely have to work on to improve how it is. Not just St. George's, but Paul, Victoria, St. Andrews, St. Ed's, and Redmond as well. So thank you very much for the comments.
Okay, so there's a gentleman up at the top. We'll acknowledge your question now.
Good evening, and thank you. I've got a whole lot of things to say. I don't know what order to say in, and it's quite emotional. But first of all, my parents came over from the 50s, 60s, immigrated from Grenada, both born in Grenada, came over, set life for themselves, raised 9 children, and created a base in England and in Grenada for themselves. They're both deceased now. Prior to them deceasing, they showed us what Grenada was about. They brought us to Grenada, they introduced us to Grenada, and we all love it. All 9 children love it. We've now that my parents are deceased, we've all invested in Grenada. Sadly, my parents left a will. They left a will. And you know what? I'm here to learn mercy. I'm sure I'm not the only one. The will has been corrupted. The will has been tampered with. The will has been manipulated. Lord knows why, what for. Obviously for people to gain profit, whatever else the situation is. My question to you guys, the administrators of this government today, is what are you doing about the corruption that is happening with the legal system in Grenada? What's happening with the justice system in Grenada? I have commissioned 4, 5, you know what, I want to say 4. I'm sure it's 5, 6, 7. I've commissioned 4, 5 lawyers, legitimate lawyers, well-established lawyers in Grenada to represent us because we suspect fraudulent activities happening in Grenada. You know what happens to these 4 or 5 lawyers? No, you know what? You tell me what happened. Don't answer. I guess. You tell me. I'm asking the panel now. Guess what happened? No. Guess what happened? One of you, please.
Sir, you would have to tell us what happened.
Okay,
and
I'm going to tell you. Because they couldn't answer, I'll tell you. No, one of them took up the cordially to say, I'm going to represent your case. They're happy to take our money. You know what? They're happy to take our retainer, our artillery, to represent us in the court of Grenada. Not one of them dealt with that. Not one. And I'm talking about 4 or 5 lawyers. I haven't counted what my sisters and my other brothers have enlisted to represent us. For me now, can I be honest? That puts me off Grenada. My parents raised me they introduced me to Grenada. I love it. I introduced my kids to Grenada. They love it. But right now, I've taken football teams to Grenada. They loved it. But right now, I'm at a position where I'm saying, I'm not going to fly the flag no more. I'm not going to fly the flag because you don't represent us. You talked about, what's this? Your ambassador, sorry, your ambassador, he mentioned everything about where they're progressing, education, social, this and that and whatnot. You didn't mention about the legal justice system, not once. Not once. Panel, all out. I just need justice. My parents, born, raised in Grenada, invested in Grenada, came here, introduced me to Grenada. They inherited, they gave us some inheritance to invest in Grenada, and we don't get nothing from it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now we'll allow the panel to respond to your question. Ladies and gentlemen, just to ensure that we get as much questions as possible, can you kindly limit your questions to at least 1 minute and make it quickly because we have plenty of questions.
All right, so thank you very much for your comments, and I feel your passion. So I think first, as Ms. Bernard is a lawyer as well, but she hasn't practiced in Grenada that much. I've practiced in Grenada as a lawyer for 20 years before getting involved in public life. So I would openly admit that the legal system, just like the legal system in the UK, is not perfect and has significant shortcomings. So that's one. And I would say, if I was a UK citizen, if I was handled by the legal system, that wouldn't prevent me from flying the UK flag. So I wouldn't allow the fact that if the justice system in Grenada was handled by me in Grenada to prevent me from flying the Grenada flag, because no country is perfect. So I want to, and so I'm not, and I'm saying this openly, that yes, there are significant challenges with the legal system in Grenada, but your story doesn't give me enough detail for me to understand what you mean by the will was corrupted. So let's be clear, the legal system isn't responsible for family disputes. I know that's what it is. There are people in families where a parent may make one will, a sister or brother or somebody may tamper with the will, they may do all of those things. That has nothing to do with the justice system. First and foremost, it has to do with the integrity of family members. However, if it's unlawful and if it's not being done properly, yes, you want to be able, if you're an innocent family member, to be in a position where you can adequately, through the legal system, address that issue. Now, I can't speak for why a lawyer will take or not take a case. Certainly, for most lawyers, it's a decision that they have to make. From where I sit, invariably the question would be, one, do I have the time to take the case on? And two, if it's a question of fee or not, whether the client can pay. And even in circumstances where the client can pay, if a lawyer decides to take the case on, then they have an obligation to do their best to make sure that the client is well represented. But I don't know, because you haven't given the background or any of the facts as to exactly what you mean by corrupted and what has happened. Now, I don't even know whether your case, from what you're saying, has even gotten to court because you indicated the lawyers did not any of the 4 lawyers did not take the case. What I can certainly say is that there have been attempts made to certainly address this misbehavior by lawyers, certainly in the last 10 years, than I would say ever before in Grenada. There is no legal counsel that persons can make complaints about any behavior or any grievance that they have with services provided by lawyers. That council is functioning. That council has actually made recommendations to the judiciary for the disbarring of lawyers, and lawyers have actually been disbarred in Grenada, and lawyers are actually being disciplined in Grenada, and that has happened over the last 5 to 7 years, when prior to that, certainly in the first 10 years of my practice, there was no lawyer who was disbarred in Grenada, there were no lawyers who were being disciplined. So I can certainly say, and you can go on the Legal Counsel website and list all the cases that it's dealt with, it lists all the recommendations that it has made in terms of any complaints that it has had to treat with against lawyers. So I'm not suggesting in any way that the system is perfect, it's far from it, but I'm certainly saying now, more than ever, there is an actually functioning grievance procedure that one can take up to address issues against lawyers. Is it the most efficient? No. Does it need improving? Yes. But it's certainly a start. So what I'm saying is, and I'm saying this because it is the reality of legal systems everywhere in the world, including this country. They're expensive, they're cumbersome, And to some extent, they come out of a very elitist system. Right? So I can certainly say that whatever the challenges that you have, and from where we sit, there are a number of challenges that affect the legal system in Grenada that, yes, as a government, we can address. And I'll give examples. The state of the court buildings. They're awful. There is no central court building in Grenada. So what you've had over the last 20 years is that the courts have been renting different premises all over the place. That leads to significant inefficiencies. A lot of the records are compromised. The court buildings are moving from one place to the next because you have mold, you have this, you have that. It's part of the general decay that we've met. I became a lawyer in 2002. There's been no improvement in the physical facilities that houses the courtrooms, the administrative staff, the judges. That's the reality. The buck now starts with us to be able to change that. The Attorney General and the team are working hard to ensure that we can create a house of justice that can help address some of those issues. That's one. Two, staffing. If you don't hire adequate staffing, and if you don't pay the administrative staff to make sure that the court system and the judicial system works, and if you don't invest in technology, you're going to have challenges. So for example, if a judge is required to handwrite the notes from witnesses in a trial, as many of them are still doing, obviously the decisions are going to take forever to come out. Obviously, if something happened to the judge's notebook, it means you have to start the trial all over again. So it means we're going to have to invest in the technologies, we're going to have to have court reporting staff that can give you transcripts and so on instantly. The reality is that's what we've met. That's the lack of investment that has happened in some of our major institutions that we have to address. And I'm not hiding or shying away from that. That's part of the challenge that we face. So we have to be able to address those things by making sure we can put resources and so on in. So would that impact the quality of justice that people get? Absolutely. I've had cases where I couldn't get the transcript to appeal. And in some instances, we've had to ask the judges whether they would allow us to retain a private person to transcribe the notes so that we can appeal. Is that fair? Of course not. It isn't. But the reality is those are the things that we face as a country, and those are the things that we have to collectively find solutions to. Now, I obviously appreciate, because I've represented clients who've been in those positions, that if it's impacting you, you may not want to look at a global solution or how we address it. But the reality is you can't improve a country by an individual case. You have to be able to improve the country by putting systems in place, by putting resources in place that allows for the justice system to improve overall. And that's one of the challenges that we have to address, and it's a challenge that certainly we will do everything to be able to address.
My friend, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying, yes? And I'm not here to combat with you, yes? What I'm saying, we've had everything that you've just said, we've had handwriting experts, we've had whatever people that have come forward and say, I'm not combating with you, I'm not combating. I'm all for you what you're suggesting, but we now need some evidence in that. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, sir. We have some other questions in the room which we will need to acknowledge. There's a lady in the middle that had her hand up for the longest one. Please stand. Thank you. We'll take the one behind you, then the lady in the green.
Greetings. It's an honour to meet you, Prime Minister. It's brilliant to see you here, it really is. I'll be brief, quick, but thorough. My mum's from Grenada. Grenada's in my heart and soul. Been there when I was younger many times. But one of the things that's happening in Britain to some Grenadians and other Caribbeans, you will know about it, is that the Windrush deportations haven't necessarily stopped, and the compensation scheme is running people round in heart-wrenching circles, which is exhausting physically, emotionally, economically. It's affecting people in many, 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 many ways. I'm a documentary maker. Grenada's in my documentary, aired in March, and part of that is talking about Windrush deportations, because the cycle of bureaucratic abuse that I don't know if you've heard about it. I just wondered if you could possibly have a word with who's ever in charge of this alleged country. Because I've seen it, I've been to 3 funerals, and 24 people have died in this country, your diaspora, your darlings, your people, and it keeps, from around the Caribbean. And it would just be lovely if there's something that was proactive that you could possibly do in your time. And watch my documentary, thank you.
All right, so thank you. I will watch the documentary. And on a serious note, I'm scheduled to meet with Minister Rutley tomorrow, and so I will certainly have this on my agenda. Yeah. So I think what we can do to help is if we can, through the High Commission, if we can get data on the numbers that have been impacted and what the sort of bureaucratic hassles are. Then we can formally write through the Diaspora Ambassador, through the Foreign Minister, to advocate that from our perspective, our diaspora is being handled. And to my colleague, friend at the top, and that's what I mean about the nature of justice in all our countries. Because this is injustice. And obviously the only way you're going to be able to address it is to know that it's happening, try and find out what the causes are, and then be able to advocate to see how we can change it. So I'm happy to do so. All right. Thank you. So if we get data, I think Roy and I was talking about the fact that there was a Grenadian committed suicide, whether it was linked directly to his challenges of how he was treated after being here for so long. We may never know, but the fact is he didn't commit suicide before. So I think just having data on that sort of thing is the kind of information that we need, so that we can ensure that the ministers who have the ability to impact the decisions that are made here are aware of the consequences of what their policies have done to the diaspora for their own citizens. So I'm happy to engage on that as well.
Thank you. So we'll take the lady in the green. For the persons who have questions, can I just ask you to line on the side here so we can go quickly one after the next, and so we can identify you easily. Ma'am, please go ahead.
My question has been the most difficult journey in getting a Grenadian passport for my children and my grandchildren. Margaret here has been really good help, but it's been like pulling someone's tooth out. No one can give me really good information as how to. So it took me about 6 months to really find out how to get my children a Grenadian passport. Now what I want to find out is how do my daughter get her son a Grenadian passport, because she wants to go back to Grenada to open a business. So if she goes back to Grenada to open a business, her son does not have a Grenadian passport. So what do we do?
All right, so, and I'm sure many may have this question about citizenship. So let me first try and address it. There are different classes or different means by which someone becomes a Grenadian. The first is obviously if you're born in Grenada, then automatically you're a Grenadian citizen. If you were born outside of Grenada before 1974, but you were born in a British colony or what is called a British protected territory, and your parents were Grenadians or were born in Grenada, you are also entitled to Grenadian citizenship. So I want to make it clear that before 1974, there was no such thing as Grenadian citizenship. There was British citizenship because we were colonies of Britain. And so if you were born in Grenada, you were free to move up and down the OECS, etc., etc. You were free to come to Britain and Ireland and these places because what you had was a British passport. There wasn't a Grenadian passport. After independence, you had citizenship that was defined by pre- and post-independence. So if by 1974 you were born in Grenada, then automatically you were a citizen of Grenada. If by 1974 your parents were born in Grenada, and you were born subsequently, you're entitled to citizenship. So If, however, so let me say this again. If you were born in Grenada after 1974, and you have a child that is born, obviously, after 1974 outside of Grenada, that child is entitled to citizenship. But your grandchild, your grandson, is not entitled because the Constitution doesn't permit for what is called second generation or even third or fourth generation to be entitled to citizenship. So that's the Constitution. So let me go that over again. You were born in Grenada. After Grenada became an independent country, you're entitled to citizenship. If you have a child born outside of Grenada after 1974, you having been born in Grenada, that child is also entitled to citizenship. But if that child makes a child outside of Grenada, which is your grandson, he's not entitled to citizenship. Right? So that is how the Constitution framed it. Now, the only way in which that could change is either we'd have to change the Constitution or we'd actually have to pass legislation which allows the Minister for Citizenship to confer citizenship on, in your case, your grandson, or what we would call third generation Grenadians or second generation Grenadians born outside of Grenada. So you have to appreciate, in the case of your grandson, his mother was born in Grenada. She was born in the UK, right? And he's born in the UK. So his citizenship is that of the UK, right? So our Constitution does not recognize the child of the parent when the parent themselves was not born in Grenada, right? So that is what the Constitution states. Many persons have raised this issue with me. It is something that I think we are prepared to have a discussion with the diaspora and with Grenadians about. And if the consensus is that we wish to see citizenship conferred on grandsons, in your case, or second generation Grenadians, if we may use that term, born outside of Grenada, then obviously we will have to pass the necessary legislation to make that happen. Having said that, your son can come to Grenada on his UK passport, because UK citizens are still given special privilege over non-UK citizens because of our colonial historical past, and because the UK is a member of the Commonwealth. So he certainly can come to Grenada. All that would be required if he wanted, for example, to work in Grenada, for example, is that he would have to simply just get a work permit. But immigration authorities will automatically allow him to stay for 6 months, and he will simply have to extend his stay if he wished. And that's, in a sense, normal immigration protocol almost anywhere that you go. So that's one approach. But if he was interested and moved to Grenada and simply resided there, then over time he would be entitled to apply for Grenadian citizenship like anyone else through a process of naturalization. So if you simply moved to Grenada, for instance, and you lived in Grenada, you can become a Grenadian citizen after a period of being there for 5 years. You can apply, and thereafter, within the next 2 years, you can become a citizen, if you wanted to. He doesn't need to be a citizen to attend school in Grenada. She can bring him if she wanted him to attend school in Grenada. That's not a problem. You don't need to be a citizen to get school attendance in Grenada. Once you are a Grenadian citizen yourself, you can move with your children and they will be permitted to attend school. So that's not an issue at all.
Several times. I was also the international speaker for the social work, what year it was, for the social work organization. My concern is about what is being done for both the mental institution and the poorhouse, yeah? And also in particular about staff training and staff here, and I once went to visit my aunt in the poorhouse. You know, we went straight into the room to say hi, then went to the staff. The staff completely ignored us and was just talking about who is she when we asked them, what's happening with her aunt? Because according to them, she gone straight to them. I've also seen what I consider poor attitude from staff in the main hospital. And I really want to kind of ask the government what they're going to do about staff training, and particular whether mental institution, the poorhouse, and those with learning disabilities, because I believe the learning disabilities, quite a few residents of the poorhouse who have special needs and really should be there.
All right, so thank you for the question. So let me start by saying the issue of health, mental wellness, and social safety net is a significant challenge. There's no other way to address it, and I think most persons who, certainly at the psychiatric hospital, you rarely ever hear a good story or someone indicating that they've had a good experience. And so we have significant changes to make in relation to that institution specifically, and significant changes to make in terms of addressing healthcare in general. And that's one of the reasons why we have said as an administration the state of health, mental wellness and well-being is a priority. But when things are so fundamentally bad, it's not going to be on the road to the master's fix. It's not going to be some miracle that happens where automatically you switch on a life and it changes. It's going to take long, slow, difficult, structural, cultural, significant resources to begin to change and improve the healthcare situation in Grenada. So I want to say this by saying it's been a collective failure of the society. It's not just governments, it's been a collective failure. For the last 50 years, the healthcare system essentially has been the same thing that we inherited since independence, save for perhaps the period of the PRG when there was dedicated attempts to improve, particularly primary healthcare and access to healthcare at the primary level. But we have a number of things. We have inadequate government resources going into healthcare. We have adopted the Western lifestyle that has created chronic, non-communicable diseases that is essentially breaking the healthcare and already weak and vulnerable healthcare system apart. And then we've also adopted a lifestyle that creates significant mental stress and mental illnesses amongst our population. So you add all on top of that on what was already an inadequate healthcare system, and it is essentially collapsed. And so our healthcare professionals, whether the nurses or doctors, are leaving en masse. They're not paid adequately. The working environment is terrible. The amount of resources that go into materials, equipment, etc. is not adequate. So I'm highlighting all of this to say it's a major challenge. So the question is, how do we address it? And we address it first by having the conversations and being open and frank about it, and then looking at how we can find creative ways to address it. But it is going to require patience. So I want to start by saying most of our doctors in Grenada, actually Grenadian doctors, and they're very young. They're very young. They've gone and they've studied and they're committed to the healthcare system. But the system, this colonial system that we've inherited, doesn't treat them well, doesn't encourage them to remain in Grenada. And so invariably what you have is if we don't change that dramatically in the next 24 months, they will leave. And the cycle will repeat itself. Because they don't even get, I can't even say adequate, the pay structure for the doctors is a failure. They will not stay for the most part. The same thing applies to the nurses. But the question is, where do we get the money to pay the doctors and the nurses from? We get it from taxpayers. Grenada isn't a wealthy country. So there's only so much of the government budget that can go into paying doctors and nurses and doing all the things we need to treat the hospital. So the question then is, how do we finance that? And we have to change the financing model. Because as it stands now, to a large extent, if you depend on the public healthcare system in Grenada, you do not pay anything. Whether you can afford to pay for it or not. And I'm saying in many instances, perhaps the majority of the instances, people can afford to pay. But if you don't pay, then you get a service that is reflective of the fact that you're not paying for it. And that is part of the challenge we have. So that's what. So we have to change the structure by ensuring that persons who can pay for healthcare pay for it. And I'm not saying here about when people come, you charge me money. I'm giving myself as an example. I have private health insurance. If I go to a private doctor, I give him my insurance card. Even if it's just to clean my teeth, there's some portion of the invoice that is refunded by the insurance company. But if I went into the hospital and asked for dental care services, I'm walking in there, getting the services, and then I walk out. Nobody's asking me for an insurance card. There's no system to take the insurance card. If a foreigner walks into Grenada and breaks his leg in some accident, they walk in, they can get surgery done at the hospital, and they can walk out, even if they have insurance. So I'm saying the financing model for healthcare in Grenada has to completely changed. If we are going to have a model that is sustainable, and we can have a model that can retain our doctors, retain our nurses, etc. That's one approach. The second approach is the diaspora. We currently have a system where we have an agreement with Cuba, which allows Cuba to assist us by providing us with medical doctors, nurses, etc. We have hundreds of medical professionals in the diaspora. Mr. Munad here and other members of GIAC, where Minister of Foreign Affairs talked about, have been really working hard specifically on this healthcare issue so that we can get the database of healthcare professionals in the diaspora who are prepared to come home on a rotation basis, in very much the same way in which we have the Memorandum of Understanding with the Cubans. So whether you're a specialist in oncology or you're OBGYN or whatever, if you are prepared to volunteer your time or come to Grenada for 1 month, you want to be able to get that long list so that we can rotate and begin to provide better access, particularly to specialists. So this is something that we're working on, and this is one way in which the diaspora can help us. Now the challenge is, everything comes to the hospital, or the mental hospital. Everything. Because our health centers, our medical stations, and the 2 small hospitals in Carrick and in Sinan are not equipped to treat with a lot of the stuff that they should be able to treat. So the problem is that everything gets sent on to the emergency and accident room at the hospital. And so it's overwhelmed. I think as many as 25,000 visits a year in a population of 100,000. So it's literally crumbling. So part of addressing this has to do with going back to a primary healthcare system, going back to making sure that the outer hospitals are better equipped to treat with stuff that can be dealt with so that people do not come to the hospital when they don't need to. So that means we are going to have to put a lot more resources into those facilities. We are going to have to find ways to, again, retain the doctors and nurses there. It means we are going to have to pay as a country. We are going to have to pay to educate more of our young people in nursing, more of our young people to become doctors, to become nursing assistants, to become lab techs, and all of the affiliated services that you need in a modern healthcare system. We can certainly use technology. We've begun to have electronic medical records in some of the healthcare stations so that the medical records are digitized. And so that you don't have these little pink pieces of paper and pieces of paper, the doctor's handwriting or nurse's handwriting that nobody can read. But crucially, the advantage of this is that if the medical record system are digitized, it means the doctors and the nurses and other healthcare practitioners can have access to it regardless of where you are. It also means that even more doctors and diasporas and the nurses, doctors and nurses in the diaspora can have access to it. And so that we can engage in things like telemed to get the expertise to help us with diagnosis or treatment or training. But that has become the norm. We are only now beginning that process in Grenada. Now, I'm saying all of this to say there will be no quick fix to the healthcare challenges we face, and I don't want to give anybody that impression. It is going to take deliberate consensus building because you have doctors, you have junior doctors, you've got consultants, you've got nurses, you've got nursing assistants, you've got the public, you've got the Ministry of Health, we've got the public. You know, we have to be able to talk through those issues and get to a point where we agree that to change the face of healthcare in Grenada, these are the ABCD issues we need to take. These are the short-term measures, these are the medium-term measures, these are the long-term measures. We are committed, for example, to building a new modern hospital. We have, on the 17th of November, as I said, we will close the land transaction. We will acquire the 89 or 84 acres of land at Calabini, which is the site. So that's one step, because just accessing the hospital, we accept is a challenge. But you can't solve the healthcare facility by building a brand new, nice military building. That's just physical infrastructure. All of the issues you raise, customer service, the training, making sure you have the right HR, the right attitude, making sure people are paid, making sure that our procurement is working, making sure we have electronic medical records. All of those things are part of what we have to do. But we believe that Grenada has unique advantages that actually allow us to transform the healthcare sector. We've got St. George's University. St. George's University produces more doctors per capita to the United States than any institution, including in the United States. But these doctors don't spend any time in Grenada. Right? And they don't spend any time in Grenada because our hospital does not allow them to be able to do their rotations. Because our hospital is far from anything close to an accredited institution. We believe that if we build a new hospital and we get it accredited, it allows more of these doctors to do their rotations. And if they're doing their rotations in Grenada, it automatically means that our public in Grenada immediately has access to a lot more doctors than they otherwise would have. We also believe that some of these doctors will fall in love with a Grenadian man or woman. They will get married, and there's a greater probability that they will stay and practice in Grenada. Many of you in the diaspora, you don't come home, or if you come home but you're on the clock because you're concerned about the state of healthcare. So again, we believe that if we fix that, it allows for you to bring more money into Grenada, for you to come home, and for us to be able to finance the healthcare system. So part of the reason why I'm very focused on building the hospital is because I feel it will force some of the structural changes that has to happen. When I met with the young doctors in Grenada last week Friday, they indicated to me that they're in support of the hospitals being placed in a statutory body, so that it becomes a more autonomous institution, separated from central government, because the bureaucracy that is associated with central government, including this government, simply takes too long to respond to many of the issues, from procurement of equipment, material, supplies, responses to HR issues, etc. And I agree with them. But I'm saying this is, my concern is, if I had walked into them with a ready-made solution, they probably would have rejected it. So it is coming out of the consultations with them. Because they, as young persons, they, more than ever, are at the forefront of the health crisis. When you listen to their stories, you go away honestly, feeling sorry for them. They're not paid well. The environment in which they work is not paid well. And as they've said to me, Prime Minister, I am dealing with debt and sickness every day. Do I have a counselor? Is there anybody that I can speak to if I was crying the night before, if I was shaken up by the fact that I lost a patient? There's nobody for me to speak to and come back next morning and back on the job. So the reality is they too are under tremendous pressure. They've indicated no one speaks out for them. No one defends them. People say all kinds of things on social media about them. And no one is asking about their own well-being. So I'm saying, that's why I say when I say the system is collapsed. Because, you know, in a sense, we're all trying to point fingers at the problem. And they accept that. I mean, one doctor got up and asked, despite all of the challenges that they have, are we as professionals doing our job sufficiently well, particularly when it comes to customer service? But you understand, it's in a sense, it's a vicious cycle where poor working conditions, poor pay, mistreatment leads to almost sort of endemic culture where they in turn are probably unpleasant, or they become insensitive or immune to the fact that, you know, no matter what, your loved one is your loved one, and you always want to ensure that they get that special care. But for a doctor, they deal with 100 loved ones. And at some point in time, I don't want to say they become robots, but I think to even carry on with the job sometimes, they too may, in a sense, create this barrier between their own emotions or their level of empathy and what is going on. So I'm saying all of this to say it is definitely difficult. But my engagement with the healthcare professionals in Grenada tells me they know it's a problem and they want to be part of the solution. Right? So they've been giving suggestions, they've been making their recommendations. Almost all of them I agree with, because I think they are in a better position than I am to make suggestions as to how we can go about beginning to improve healthcare in Grenada. But I think the truth is they have not been listened to in the past. In many instances, I don't think they've even been met with in terms of addressing some of the issues that we face. So all I can say to you is that I am committed, the government is committed to doing everything that we can to begin to, one by one, bit by bit, address the significant challenges we have in the healthcare sector. What I would say the diaspora can certainly help us do is on the question of primary healthcare and preventative healthcare. Most of the challenges we face in Grenada relate to cardiac arrest. Cancer is the #1 killer. Diabetes, sugar diabetes, kidney failure, right? All of those issues come from our lifestyle. So we have created a situation where we make ourselves sick, and then we expect the government to be able to get the resources to be able to make us better. And in many instances, these are non-communicable chronic lifestyle diseases. There are significant amputations in Grenada. It's almost like a war zone, right? It's double, single amputees, young people requiring dialysis, the abuse of alcohol. I mean, I can go on and on. The failure to exercise, the overconsumption of the wrong types of food. I mean, a lot of this comes from how we behave. And I think members of the diaspora can certainly help from an advocacy point of view to make sure that we encourage people to exercise, that we encourage people to limit the intake of alcohol and sugar, that we basically live healthy. In Grenada's case, there's no excuse for it. The fresh fruit is there, the vegetables is there, all the things we grow on are still there. But instead we consume a lot of wheat products. Our food import bill is massively high. So we've really compounded the problem by engaging in a lifestyle that basically is crushing the health sector. And a lot of it is preventable. So certainly I would say advocacy and education is critical. What we will do about simple things like oral hygiene and making sure that at schools, kids understand how to take care of their teeth, how to brush their teeth, the impact of excessively sugary drinks on their teeth and so on. Those things matter. That's what I came through when I went to primary school in Grenada. It's primary school in my view that taught me about oral hygiene. Right? So we have to make sure that when we educate our children, it's not just about the academics and so on, but that healthcare and taking care of themselves and exercise as a lifelong activity is part of that. So sorry, I gave a very long-winded response because I think to appreciate healthcare is important. And all of what I've said applies to the mental part of it. It's all part of that challenge that we face. Yes, so I've tasked the Ministry of Health and with establishing a donations desk to make sure that we can address those issues, because it's a common complaint that I've heard, and I know the ambassador would have taken note of it, so I think it is something, ambassador, we should be able to explicitly address to make sure that when donations are received, that they're acknowledged, that persons know that they've been put to use, and that we can respond. So, noted. All right.
Thank you. We'll move quickly on to the next person.
Good evening, my name is Olivia. I just wanted to first say thank you for not forgetting the diaspora. I think there's a difference here, and really just by the overflow I can see outside on my way in, that's really a testament to the difference and the change that this government has implemented already in a short time. But I won't say long. What I wanted to ask was, we spoke about investing yesterday, and I know that there's a housing crisis in Grenada. I wanted to know if the diaspora, if there are any kind of incentives or kind of, plans for the diaspora to work with the government in terms of, let's say someone has land, wants to build a block of apartments or something, and so social housing people would get put into there as tenants, and there may be, I don't know, some sort of contract or agreement with the housing authority of Grenada to help with the building or with the banks or anything like that. I just wanted to know that.
So the answer is yes, in short term. So what I can do is we created a Project 500 committee that is housed within the Ministry of Housing. Their website should be up shortly, and they've also been tasked with recruiting a marketing firm to obviously be able to give all the information as not just in terms of what the project is about, but in specific issues of investment, what the government is prepared to do in terms of infrastructure, land, incentives. So that package should be rolled out by the end of the year. Even issues like what the model type housing could be. So what I can do is, if you're interested, I would ask you to perhaps leave your contact details with my assistant so that we can at least have some more to follow on that. Thank you.
You can step forward.
Good evening, my name is Kayla. Today I'm going to be talking about carnival. On my summer holidays, I went to Grenada to play carnival, and there was jab while we were playing carnival. So I think that there shouldn't be jab because they could damage the costume.
Sorry, are you finished or you had another question?
I'm finished.
All right. I'm not sure what to say. So thank you very much for your question. So I agree with you that the period when jab is being played should only be for jab. And the period when the costume is taking place should only be for the costumes. So one of the challenges we've had is sometimes the jab goes too long and it interferes with the costume mask. So I will certainly make sure that when I get back to Grenada, I will indicate to the jab bands that we need to make sure that we stay.
I was meant to speak to you, Grenada, and someone said that they'll call my mum back so then I could talk to you, but when she said she will call back, she didn't call back, and then I already went back to London, and I didn't get to chance to talk to you.
I will certainly make up for that, so I'll make sure that I come to speak to you after. Okay? I hope I'm fortunate. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the panel. My name is Stanley. My question is twofold. It falls under cultural and affairs. I do genealogy study. I'm writing a book on my ancestry at the moment. I'm in a group online called Grenada Genealogical Society Online. A lot of people, some people in line have heard of it. There's about 3,500 members. Basically, we are doing a research on our ancestors in Grenada, but we're having a lot of trouble finding information. From an education point of view, when I go home, I take lots of pictures of every place and so forth in Grenada. When I post it online, people are asking, where is this place, when did you take this pictures, etc. But I do that out of love in terms of cataloging our history. From an education point of view, what is happening, or can you tell me, what is happening with the library, the museum, and also, you kind of touched on it already, and we've been having lots of debate on that online in terms of groups of us within there who's ready to go to Grenada and take part in that digitization process of what's going on. Because I was meant to be part of the previous back, which didn't happen. You hear lots of stories, and I'm not going to blame. But I follow the politics in Grenada to a certain degree. One of your ministers is a cousin of mine, but park that aside. No inside information. But what I want to know is, under social affairs and culture, I know there was a plan to restore the museum, although I've seen it. There is a historian in Grenada. I'm going to mention his name, Angus Martin. He's a cousin of mine. I've seen the plan for restoring the museum, but for whatever the reasons are, it's been put aside because there's no commonality in terms of that. Then there's an issue with the library. When I was going last year in June, I had to stick my head through the hole and take pictures. And I know about documentation that is wet. Documentation, if you touch it, it's going to crumble. It's moldy, as I said, and so forth and things like that. I know for a fact, right now, if I was to start a GoFundMe to raise awareness and money to help create something, I would get the numbers that we need. And we're actually discussing that right now. And then to add to that one more thing, I believe in the 1980s, the Mormons were allowed to come to Grenada and catalog our cemeteries and birth certificates and things like that. So now when you go online and you try to get copies of something, you actually have to pay some of the sites to get that. I'm in the process, again, of working with other colleagues, of doing a database, just to catalog our cemeteries and things myself. But again, we have people who are ready to do that. So from a government point of view, how ready are you and willing to work with people like us and Grenada Genealogical Society and like which for me is a benefit for the people of Grenada, is Grenada's history, and it becomes part of the curriculum for the children coming up behind.
Picture tells 1,000 words. So I've shaken his hands to indicate to him that we're ready. And I'm saying this because I think somewhere along the line, maybe it's because of the Americans that were just in the 1983. As citizens, we have handed over the state to a few people get elected every 5 years, and expect that somehow the country will move forward. It will not. Grenada belongs to us. And I'm saying we collectively as citizens have to take control of the country and move it in the direction that we want it to see. So just like you, I was appalled that I appreciate we've had shocks. Hurricane was a terrible, terrible experience. It set us back a lot. We lost a lot of our archives, but some of it was damaged. Right? And the truth is just having them sitting in a room that is hot or you're running conditions for 24 hours is just not a sustainable way. So we have to digitize whatever we have left. So whether it's the Governor General's archives, whether it's the Supreme Court Registry archives, and I can probably talk about the Supreme Court Registry archives because we didn't lose them as a result of Hurricane Ida. And if you go to the Supreme Court archives, it basically gives you the history of it. Because it goes all the way back from probably around 1800, all from land ownership. You probably will see more slaves, more planters. That's how we knew which British families owned slaves in Grenada and are still around today. That's where the Laura Trevelyan's and so on, their families were discovered as the slave-owning families. Great. So while we've lost some of the records, for example, from the Governor General's archives, the Supreme Court Registry archives are there, right? And so digitizing, cataloging it is stuff that we are happy to get help from. They've started doing so with the museum. I have a feeling, I don't know if I'm guessing which minister you're related to, but
I wouldn't give the name, but I've written to them since March.
okay.
And the reason I say since March is I have a big family reunion because of that taking place next year. And I'm trying to compress 350 years of family history into 10 hours for when I got out. But at the same time writing a book as well on the family and accessing a lot of information online. To this day I haven't heard from them.
Well, I will note it. So I'm saying, but even in that context, that's why I say sometimes that we do have to be a bit more aggressive. And I'm saying we need the citizens and be able to take control. So things like the GoFundMe, you're welcome to start that so that we can get it going to get those things done. A lot of the things that needs to happen in Grenada is not going to happen if we depend on the government. Oftentimes the government will need a partner to push it in the direction that the country needs to go, simply because government processes are very slow. There are lots of rules and regulations, and by the time we spend our time trying to fix the rules and regulations, you're either in the next election cycle, or you will not have accomplished the actual substantive issues that you want to. So the GoFundMe, I would certainly say go right ahead and set it up. We are happy to partner with any charity, any well-meaning a private sector person, any commercial entity to address some of the challenges that we need, whether it's from the museum, the library, or archives, whether it's the Supreme Court Registry, the Governor General's Registry, the Prime Minister's Office. We've produced tons and tons of paper over the years, and we need to digitize paper because we actually need to preserve them, and we need the space. So I certainly am prepared to work with you, sir, and anyone else who's so inclined. Thank you.
Just before we take the next person, what we will do is take one question each right through, and then we'll give the panel the chance to respond to it, just because we have here until 8 o'clock and we're almost at that mark. So go ahead, ask your question, we'll go to the next, and then we'll give the panel the chance to respond. Can you please keep quiet so we can move through quickly? Thank you.
To the Prime Minister, if I had to christen him or baptize him now, I'll give him the name Hope. Because when Grenada had no hope, he stepped into the gap, and I want to congratulate you. If I can lend a helping hand in any way, I'm available. Way of somebody to be brief, so I threw my script away. I just want to mention 3 dates that the Prime Minister alluded to earlier. In 1877, we became a crown colony. In 1967, we became an associate state within the British Commonwealth. In 1974, we became an independent nation. The 4th date is about to happen in a matter of months. On the 7th of February, 2024. I mentioned those dates just for the Prime Minister and his team to give consideration to 2 things. One, I listened to the elections, and I listened to the Prime Minister, and he did not want to leave anybody out. He said, Petit Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. Mr. President, is there any way in which you can simplify the name so that we can have a name and only call that name, it embraces all the because soon from now I'm going to be saying my name is not there. So probably you can give consideration to that name. It's very lengthy. And if you can have a name like GCP, next year, who knows? We might have a new name. And the final name, I mentioned those days, there is a day that has not yet happened. There is a fever in the Caribbean, started by Barbados. Mr. Chairman, is there any hope? Oh yeah, your name is Hope. Is there any hope that in my lifetime I'll see a 5th date that will become a republic? Thank you.
Clearly underage, but try to pat them back, there's nothing really done with them. We also see a lot of young girls who are missing. And I've noticed that if they are anything from 12 and upwards, there is zero empathy, zero sympathy. There is more sympathy for a young boy who goes missing or an older man. That's out there, but not for the young girls. So, in my line of work, I've been in the criminal justice system for 23 years. This Tuesday is going to be 18 years since I've been in London probation. I specialize in domestic violence, writing the risk management plans and risk assessments, sexual offending, and serious offending home report gangs. I've reached out to organizations in Grenada, and it always feels as if I'm coming to impose or we in the diaspora coming to impose. And what we want to do is not reinvent the wheel, but just start support what's there. We all heard about brain drain when we was in school. They drummed it into our heads, and we all left.
System engineers.
Come back to share, and that's what we're trying to do. So the question is, what is being done to address the issue of grooming and sexual abuse that can be seen as a norm in Grenada, and the support for our young girls and women? And I say that based on the fact as well that that was part of the manifesto. But if you go on the NBC website, unfortunately, someone kind of forgot to update that part because it talks about the support for women and girls, but it still has our beloved Franca Bernardine as the leader of the party. So it kind of puts the impression out there that are we really looking at it?
Sure. So just hold with your question. I'll allow the Prime Minister to respond.
All right, so I don't think it falls on me to create a new name for Grenada. I will leave it to the collective creativity of all Grenadians to see whether or not we get a name that will capture all three islands. So let me say, I support personally having a head of state who is functional. I don't believe in ceremonial head of states. So even if I went to republicanism, as in even if I wanted a Republican form of government, I would not support having a ceremonial president, as Barbados does or Trinidad does. To me, the Caribbean is too small, and this is just wasting taxpayers' money for ceremonial offices that we could ill afford. We could barely afford the trappings of state and so my sense of republicanism is you have one head of state, that head of state is elected by the people, and he votes for the people. End of story. But that requires constitutional change. And you know how politics is. If you can't get overwhelming agreement, I'm not even saying consensus, explicit written and verbal agreement from all political actors in the country to go that route, then it will become a political football and you'll end up not having the change. So it will require galvanizing and educating and us accepting. I think for very practical reasons, we cannot afford to have a head of state that is paid for by taxpayers, that is not elected by taxpayers, and doesn't serve the taxpayers. The office of the Governor General doesn't do so, the office of the President in the countries where you have a ceremonial president doesn't do so. I mean, they do ceremonial things and that sort of stuff. They take votes and administer votes. The judges can do so, a magistrate can do so. You really don't need, in mind, an expensive office that clearly has a legacy from the British monarchy or French expansion monarchy, as the case might be, to just add another layer of government and another layer of bureaucracy that we can't afford to pay for. So my sense of republicanism is one head of state elected by the people, working for the people, which is obviously the American example of what we have. On the question of the, I didn't want to call it harassment, that deep-seated psychological sexualization of our young women. It is something that requires significant working rate. And there is certainly Minister Gloria Thomas and her team, in conjunction with the UN, UNESCO, etc., have been working on the Spotlight Initiative, which is targeted at addressing that very issue, particularly as it relates to girls and women. But I want to say this because I think we're missing a point. if we don't focus on men and on young men, we are not going to be able to solve this issue of the sexualization of our young women. And I think unfortunately the approach has been wrong by focusing on the women and the young women. It's not the women and the young women who are sexualizing themselves. It's men, and oftentimes it's older men, or men who are financially stronger and who use that income or wealth inequality to sexualize and to prey on our young women. And so, if we do not ensure that our men are socialized and educated properly, then we will never be able to fix that problem. And that's one of the things as a society I think we have to look at, because we've spent a lot of time on the gender question, meaning women really oftentimes, to address the imbalances in terms of education, in terms of job opportunities, etc. for women. But at the same time, if you go to the prisons, there's 400 people up there, 398 of them are men. And oftentimes young men. So we criminalize them, we turn them into criminals, what happens? Right? They go back and they treat and they repeat and so on. So I'm saying that I'm not in any way discounting things like the Spotlight Initiative that has a wide range of things, including creating a family code, which we tried, the former NCS initiative and tried to do. So there's a lot of that we need to do. But I think fundamentally, when it comes to education and behavior, particularly violence, and the fact that our society still seems to think it's okay to settle disputes or disagreements violently, it's one of the things that we have to spend a lot of time on. So I think it's one of the things we've been talking about. We're in fact having an International Men's Day in this month in Grenada. It's a big conference because we recognize that if we don't actually address behavior patterns, the socialization, the culturalization of men and young men, we will not be able to address the changes that we talk about. But there are other things that we can protect our young women in particular. And I go back to the transportation system, for example. If you're 12 years old and your parents can't drop you to school and you go on a public bus, we are basically putting our young girls and boys in a situation where it's a completely uncontrolled environment. From smoking, drinking, obscenities. I mean, you will be touched, you will be broken. There's just no control. You literally are putting them in a situation where they're in a little bus, 16, sometimes 18. You have to small yourself to fit. And I'm saying addressing those things sometimes requires an out-of-the-box solution in the context of saying, should we not have dedicated transportation to take our children to school? Right? So that at least you immediately reduce the risk of them being placed in that kind of environment. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. Because we have to have some structural changes in the way in which we approach some of the problems. Because even if you educate and you socialize, if you then put 12 and 13-year-old girls or boys in an adult environment, because that's what the public transportation system is, then you have no control over what could or may happen to them. So I just wanted to flag that. But again, we are a long way from what we need. And the question of the receptiveness, that's part of the reason why I'm here in the diaspora, because I recognize there is that cultural nuance, and I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs speaks about it a lot, where we do get the sense that sometimes it's convenient to the diaspora that non-receptive or unreceptive to the help that the diaspora is trying to give. But we also have to recognize that sometimes, because of that perception, we also have to sensitize the diaspora about it, so that when we have the engagement, we are culturally sensitive about it, because people may have that perception, and we have to find ways to address that perception first, so that they can then receive the help. Because sometimes when you try, it's like a drug addict, you're trying to help him. If he doesn't believe he has a drug addiction problem, then basically, so that kind of cultural sensitization has to take place as well. So thank you.
Thank you for the last two.
Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister and all delegates. I've come today just to see you in person, but also to thank you for making the change within the High Commission's office. My dad was brutally murdered in February 2022 as the first homicide, Mr. John mentioned, in his home in Powell, an elderly gentleman, 79 years of age. I called up the High Commissioner of Grenada here, only to be told he wasn't the only one. And no help was offered after that fact. I had to call on family members to try and make contact with other areas of Grenada, because at that time we were going through COVID as well. It was a very difficult time. Also to then make contact with the Royal Grenada Police Force, for them to then turn around and tell me, we don't talk to people from overseas. I am my dad's only child. I couldn't get across to Grenada quick enough. It took me a good 2.5 weeks to get over to Grenada, and even then I had to leave my children behind because they didn't have one of their COVID vaccines. I emailed, I phoned, I texted, every sort of communication. Up to this today, no one has ever responded back to me. I then had to go through the High Commission, go through the victim support and speak to the High Commission over here, to then speak to the High Commission in Barbados, because they said that the Grenada High Commission don't deal with that. I have to go through Barbados. And I've been liaising with the High Commission in Barbados for over 2 years. Every day, email, texts. I said, I had to then drop some people as well into that so that I could get to the result that I heard I need to get the word out. I've heard cases that have gone for years, 5, 10, 15 years. People only keep telling me, well, it's been enough. The things that I heard about that case, the pictures that I've seen about that case, the police information that they actually gave me when I did get to Grenada was hard. Nobody knew anything. The police are asking me, when's the next case? When's the next court case due? I'm hearing on the media when they might go into court. I begged and pleaded and said I wanted to be at court to see this gentleman go down for what he had done to my dad, the brutality of what he had done to my dad. I was called an hour before the court case. I was on the way to go pick up my daughter from cheerleading in a car, waiting, on hold. I said, this is stupid. I'm going to make my way home. I managed to drive home on hold while my phone was on the side, just in case they picked up. I got home, set it up on the computer, still no access. Then to be told, oh, we're going to lunch. What I'm trying to say is basically communication, the skills and the knowledge that Grenada, I know has to possess, but choose not to possess, and choose not to be, and the customer service focused. I went through a traumatic time. It was hard. It was hard. And it's only because I feel that I got the media involved in the end, because it just so happened that the day it came out in the papers over here is the day that the case was actually called to court. It shouldn't be like that.
No.
I've never heard anything from any government official. I'm not saying that my dad was, he was just a gentle old man that deserved a tiny bit of respect for the brutality that he went through that night. That man, I didn't receive nothing. No phone call, no little card, no nothing. Then talking about trying now, I'm left with this estate, this house, this land, trying to get the Grenada passport. Got all of the details, everything that they said they wanted, only to then be told when I get to the offices, yeah, I'm an apostille. An apostille? What's that? An apostille is apparently, it shows that this is an official document that you have to have from your English birth certificate. Because they don't just accept it like that. With all of the strain and the stresses that I went through, to then be told that was just the icing on the cake. I loved Grenada, travelled there every single year with me and my family. It's put me off Grenada completely. And still not back. I then contacted the courts. The gentleman got a whole life sentence for what he'd done, and that's only because I pushed it for the 2 years. And then asked, well, this isn't me. I don't know. What does that mean? Does that mean he's going to be in prison for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, his whole life? No response back. My family isn't from that background, so we don't know how the courts operate. And I just wanted to share that.
Sorry, that is actually to do with passport. My parents was Grenada, born in Grenada. I was born after 74, before 74, sorry. What passport, therefore, what Grenada passport should I have, and what Grenada passport should my daughter have?
Where were you born in Grenada? You were born in the UK? Right, and you were born after 1974? Or before?
Before.
Right, so if you were born in the UK before 1974, you would have been entitled to, in your own right, to have a Grenadian passport.
I've got the wrong passport.
Right, you have one, right?
I have got a Grenada passport, but I believe I have the wrong Grenada passport.
Meaning you applied on the basis of your
I've got a passport by descent, yes.
Okay, but no, I think if you were born before 1974 and you were born in the colonies, well, you were born in the UK or?
In the UK.
You were born in the UK.
Yes.
Okay, I'll need to double check that. I'm assuming, I was assuming you were born in Grenada. Alright, so I'll have to double check.
Yeah.
Right, but your parents were born in Grenada.
My parents were born in Grenada.
Okay. So I'll have to double check. But it's possible, so I'm saying I would need to actually check the exact wording of the law. It's possible that you may have been entitled to citizenship in your own right,
Yes.
as in not by descent.
And not by descent.
But if you were entitled to it in your own right, then your child will be entitled to it by descent.
By descent. Thank you. We'll take a last question and I'll allow the Prime Minister to respond.
Good evening, everybody. Can't hear me? Okay, hope you can hear me now. Good evening, Prime Minister and your panel. Got a couple of questions. One of them is this, is that thank you very much for coming and spending quality time with us in the UK and sharing so much of your vision and plans for the future. The first question I'd like to ask, in terms of some of those projects that you're mentioning, they're not ones that you may be able to complete in one cycle. So what buy-in is there in terms of the opposition, so that there's some consensus so that the direction of travel, can be achieved, so you don't start something as a government and then when should you not be in office for a second term for the sake of there's no, hey, hold on, let's be real, please. It's not what you want to hear tonight.
Let's allow the gentleman to finish the question, please. Thank you.
Are you pretending or you don't know how you're
Sir, please continue with the question so we can wrap it up. Thank you.
Additionally, what I'd like to say is this, in spite of the confusion I caused, apologies people, is that we have got a lot of grey hair, yes, in the UK in terms of the diaspora, and by that I mean people who have retired and so on. And what I would like to ask is this, is in terms of the various projects and so on that will be going up, how can we as Grenadians in the diaspora be able to make regular contributions through charity or whatever, yes, on a monthly basis to actually help out on this up. And in respect of the time constraints, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So I will answer the question. I didn't respond immediately to your sharing of your deeply personal story, and to some extent, because I'm also sure. I mean, outside of assure you that I think the current High Commissioner understands her role and responsibility to Grenadians in the diaspora. And not just Grenadians in the diaspora, because to be honest, the fact that you had to resort to Barbados, I think is an indication that I think just from a Caribbean perspective, I'm sure if a non-Grenadian came to our current High Commissioner, even if she may not be directly responsible, she would certainly have the empathy to find out and to seek from another colleague what could be done. So I think from our perspective, that's one of the key things we've talked about, the fact that first and foremost, our High Commission is here to serve Grenadians. And that in a sense is our primary responsibility. And even if something may not fall within our, in a sense, legal ambit, at the end of the day, surely if a member in the diaspora here lost a loved one in Grenada, the tragic circumstances in which that was lost, I was a bit taken aback because I really couldn't understand how we could have performed lack of empathy to the situation that you were going through. So I think I feel compelled to apologize, notwithstanding I wasn't in public office or not, because we have to aspire to treat people better than that. And I say this oftentimes because that's one of the things that concerns me a lot, is we've become crude and abusive and cold sometimes to each other. And I don't know why. I mean, in an island setting, in a setting where everybody knows to me, the first act of humanity is kindness and empathy. So in a sense, I really it's heartbreaking to hear of, well, first of all, the tragic circumstances in which you had lost his life, and then the compounding of it by the experiences that you had to go through. And so when people share those stories, to me, the issue here is how do we get to a point where we're professionals, whether it's the police, whether it's the DPP's office, etc., appreciate that. And I get it because I'm a lawyer. I understand how the courtroom can be cold and almost seemingly oblivious to the pain and the suffering of the person who are impacted by whatever is going on. And that's all the more reason why we have to fight that culture, to make sure that people understand it's not a transaction. It's the fact that if someone is a victim to a crime, from the pettiest crime, whether it's housebreaking and stealing or pickpocketing to murder, that it impacts their life and oftentimes has a profound impact on what will happen for the rest of their lives. So for me, as I said, I feel compelled to apologize on behalf of the state for the callous manner in which and the pledge will be, in certain for all parties to ensure that, and that's part of the cultural, the professionalism. Even before we get to empathy, frankly, oftentimes when people are professional, then you do the right thing. You don't even need to get to empathy, because as our most junior member in the room said tonight, if you say you're going to fall back, you should fall back. All right, it's as simple as that. So I think part of ensuring that the public service in Grenada gets to that stage is part of our responsibility now, so that people understand that there are professional service standards that must be met. We should be striving to do so, and I'm sure, based on my experience with the High Commissioner, she will bring that to the office. I think she will also help the government itself, because she's extremely professional in my dealings. She's probably already questioned a few times why she came to work for the public service, because she sets very high standards and demand high standards from the rest of us. So I'm sure she will do a good job in making sure that no citizen in the diaspora repeats that kind of experience that you would have had to go through when you were with the High Commission. So I will certainly know that it's my responsibility for national security, so police falls under my ministerial portfolio. So I certainly can, in my briefing with the Commissioner of Police, address this issue with it. All right. So the question that caused a little consternation actually I think is a very profoundly important question. Because we can't as a country go forward if every time there's a change in a government, things that are fundamentally important gets reversed simply because it wasn't started by this administration. And so it's not a question to be taken lightly as to how we bridge the divide and get consensus that something is good for Grenada. And I will admit to you that it's something that I'm struggling with, because this is your state-of-the-art hospital was something that the NEC government had done a lot of work on during the period 2008 to 2013, and had the NLP administration proceeded with it, I probably would be here. The state of health in Grenada would probably have been dramatically different. And so it's and I'm seeing a lot of work because, and I'm quoting him, I hope he's not upset by me. So our current governor of the central bank was the then permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance. And he's indicated to me that he believed in this project and that he was prepared to leave his job as permanent secretary to take on championing this project. That's how much he believed in the fundamental law of Grenada. But the government changed. You remain the permanent secretary, and the policymakers, his bosses then, decided that they would shelve the project. And 10 years later, our healthcare system has deteriorated even worse. And we are a decade late trying to put back the pieces together to try and move this forward. So to me, the only way to address those issues is that we have to build sufficient consensus amongst the population that hopefully no political party is stupid enough to reverse things which are clearly in the best interest of Grenada, period, regardless of which government. But from our end, because we recognize that challenge, the only thing I can say that we are committed to doing is, you can't have some transformation without velocity. Because if you take too long to do it, oftentimes it just doesn't happen. So we are really committed to making this hospital project irreversible, even if there's a change in the government. And I'm saying irreversible again to make sure that the contractual arrangements, the marketing, the construction, all of that are so well advanced that no politician will be able to leave his house if there was a change in government and he attempted to reverse this, because the Grenada will live.
How are we going to know about contractual?
Sir, please allow the Prime Minister to finish speaking so that we can wrap up. Thank you.
I love the words he's saying. I love the words he's saying, but all I need to know is we've been 5 decades there. Our parents come over, 50 years on, we still don't know no contractual arrangements with Grenada government. Please listen now. Explain.
Yeah, so if you calm down and you speak clearly, I don't hear you. I'm not hearing you. So just tell me again and I'll answer the question. Repeat yourself.
Please explain. We've been here, how many decades? 5 decades in the UK. In the UK, yes? And the dysphoria that you're talking about and that you're promoting, we've seen no benefits of it. We've seen nothing.
I'm still not getting your question.
What are you going to do about it as a government, as an administrator, not you per se, but previous and present have done nothing. Nothing.
About what? That's what I'm not getting there. Done nothing about what? I'm not getting that.
But you're asking us to be supportive to your drive for economic development, social development, whatever development you banter about, what your ambassador just earlier mentioned, yes? Why are you reaching out to us? How are you reaching out to us?
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for that question. It is noted. Please allow the Prime Minister to finish speaking, as we do have limited time in here. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So, as I was concluding on the hospital project, and it's not just the hospital, I think there are other things that we have to be able to do and do quickly so that you can get the kind of changes that you need. So let me perhaps conclude by answering the question that the gentleman asked. I'm only responsible for myself, right? And so that you understand where I come from, so you can get. I think my dad left Grenada and came to this country when I was around 3 or 4 years old. I never met my dad until I was 14 or 15 thereafter. My mother migrated to Canada when I was doing common entrance, when I was 11 years old. So, do I understand the diaspora? Yes. I've got 2 sisters and a brother who live in this country. I've got a brother who lives in Washington, I've got a brother who lives in New York. I chose to stay in Grenada. Right? I choose to stay in Grenada. Many people choose to leave. I hold nothing against anyone who chooses to make their fortune or fame or misfortune outside of Grenada. As the Prime Minister of Grenada, it is my responsibility to reach out and engage with every Grenadian, wherever they are, irrespective of what other administrations might have done in the past. And I want to make something clear, which is why I talked about the approach that I'm taking. You know, we as citizens of Grenada, you could choose to come to Grenada or not. You could choose to contribute to Grenada or not, irrespective of whether or not a politician is asking you to do so. If you think politicians make the country great, they don't. It is the citizens of the country that make the country great. And so, I appreciate that if you feel things don't work in your country, you have 2 responses. You can sit and back talk the governments and the politicians, or you can do what I do. I put my hand up. I said, I'm going to do what I can so that my conscience is clear as to whether or not I helped to build my country or whether I was a hypocrite. Stay on the side. each and every one of us. I was a lawyer. I was doing very well. I could have simply remained there. But the little rock that I came from gave me an opportunity to be a lawyer. The least I worked with and to the fellow citizens, especially those who are younger, is to say to them, I'm prepared to take a pay cut. I'm prepared to make sacrifices. I hope my family will forgive me and try and serve my country. And that's what I'm endeavoring to do. That's why we're here having the conversation. That's why from the beginning I said I was going to give you the mic so that you could see what you have to say, make your comments. And let's end by saying this. I value democracy, so I very much value the contributions. I don't want you to leave here thinking. That's the whole point of having this engagement. All right? I'm not here because I want you to tell me what I want to hear. I'm here because I want you to tell me what you want to see. And so the comments you made are all taken on board. And it's not even for us to agree or disagree. At this point in time, it's for us to hear from you. Because this is just the initial engagement. The easiest way to test us will be to 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now, the ambassador talked about the follow-up, about the reporting, about the accounting, and we should be in a position to report to you on the things we've done and not done, and we'll be able to know whether or not we're making progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this town hall, and I know there are plenty more questions, but hopefully we will get the opportunity again to engage with the Prime Minister. Thank you so much for coming out on a Sunday.
Yeah, pass the ball.
So the President's Community happy. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everyone.
How about it?
If I take time and I write down all the things that I love on my island, best believe my list gon' be like 5 miles long. Best believe it's love that makes me sing this song.
The cleanest breeze on the waters,
friendly people meet in every corner. Togetherness and love is what we stand for. We stand for. We stand for.
Oh, island in the sun, look at how we've grown, how far we've run. 50 years we strong and more to come. More to come. More to come. We're going higher. 50 years we're blessed, we're forged in fire. Still reaching for more. Going up, going up, 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 up. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up. We're going higher. Going higher. As we aspire, build advances, put people together. Bang, bang, bang. It's only up from here. Take time to reminisce on the richness of our history from the beginning. From the people who came through sugar and change, emancipation through revolution.
More than the speck up on the globe, more than the ice cream and gold, much more than the nutmeg and the clove. Tell the world we are Grenadians. Oh.
3 islands united as one, blessed with the strength to carry on. We're more than just that island in the sun. Tell the world we are Grenadians.
Going higher. 50 years we're blessed, we're forged in fire.
Oh, you mean?
We going up, going up, going up, 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 up. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up. Aspire, build advances, want people together. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up.
Really and truly, can't find the words to describe what my country mean to me. So much things we take for granted, but so much things they give to me. Peace and tranquility, family, community. It no matter where we go in the world, just know that home is where my heart is. For 50 years, as he shake for 50 more, as he shake to reach the goal, like you only bring the goal.
Growing up, I can see the vision clear. Sing it out and let the people hear.
Look at how we've gone and how far we've come.
50 years we strong and more to come. More to come, more to come. It's only up from here. More, more, more. Yeah. Higher,
Like that.
higher.
And higher. And higher.
It's only up. We're going higher. 50 years we're blessed with ocean fire. Still reaching for more.
Going up, we make the curry pity matnik.